Well, welcome. This is the first event in our 2024 Geography of Hope series, and we're very thrilled to have you all tonight, especially to join us with a good friend of ours, Polly. First things first, I'll introduce myself. My name is Chris Connish. I'm the Senior Director of Development with Alaska Wilderness, home in DC, traditional lands of the Anacostan and Piscataway peoples. Before we begin, just a couple quick housekeeping items. First and foremost, please ensure that you're muted throughout this presentation. We'll try to keep an eye on things, but it's helpful to self-regulate that if possible. Second, please do use the chat. We're going to be collecting questions throughout this presentation and hopefully having an opportunity to talk with Polly following her great stories to address some of those. And third, if for folks who haven't been on Zoom in a while, now that we're in sort of a new reality, so to speak, there is a view button in the upper right-hand corner of the screen that'll allow you to pop up the main speaker. If you select speaker view, that'll allow you to see the main speaker highlights. With that out of the way, I'm extremely thrilled to be with you tonight to see some familiar names on the participant list as well as some new ones, which is always great to see. I did want to share a quick welcome message from our Executive Director, Kristen Miller. She was not able to join us tonight. She's spending some time with family over spring break, but she wanted to share a few remarks that I'm excited to share with you today. So bear with me just one moment, and I will be presenting a few remarks from Kristen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Miller, Executive Director at Alaska Wilderness League. I'm sorry I couldn't be there with you live tonight, but I'm thrilled to still be the one to welcome you to the League's first Geography of Hope in 2024. Many of you have tuned into these in the past, so welcome back. For those who are new, the Geography of Hope series was originally inspired by our previous Executive Director, Adam Kolton, who truly believed in the power of storytelling. The stories we share are about our experience with Alaska, its wild landscapes, its vibrant communities, and its incredible wildlife. Stories can provide hope when the world feels a little bit hopeless. They also spark people to the action needed to achieve protections for Alaska's future generations. I hope Polly's stories today offer you that hope and inspiration. We look forward to standing together with you going forward in this work to protect wild Alaska. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Kristen. I'll share those thanks when I see her next week. As Kristen said, this series was started from our former executive director, Adam Kolton. We're also excited to share an extension of that legacy a bit here tonight. When he passed away, we formalized a grant award in his honor to help support storytellers in Alaska. The very first recipient of that award is with us here tonight. It's Polly Andrews, and we're very thrilled to feature here. She'll be sharing a few stories about what's been made possible thanks to that award. And I did also want to share that opportunity for that grant award, we've just entered the second year of that, is made possible through a memorial fund that was established. The Adam Kolton Memorial Fund helps support this important award. And if folks have not had an opportunity to participate in that and to contribute, I'd encourage you to do so. I'll be sharing a link here during the program. That does sustain future years of this program, and it's very pivotal to that we can carry this important work forward. So with that out of the way, I'll happily introduce Polly Andrews, as I've said her name many times here, I think joining us from Anchorage, and I'll turn things over to her.
Hello, Waka. Good afternoon. I would first like to open up our time together by sharing a song called Nita Kama Hui. And the meaning of this song, it shares, when I hear the voices of my ancestors, it's beautiful and it gives me flight. Nita Kama Hui. Nita kama hui, nunale wakda hawani shakda. That was a song composed by Asi Gayagayok, who is Yupik from the village of Chufornik on the Bering Sea coast of Alaska. Hi, waka, huinga Polly Andrews, juhtun atka na piriuk, ilanka jafaramungut. Apama atra ulran Billy Andrews auchlu, mauglu mashu Cecilia Andrews awuk, koyana dunklamchi. And what I shared with you all is that my English name is Polly Andrews, and my Chupik name is Napiriuk. It means to sharpen. And I am Chupik from the village of Chevak, Alaska, which is on the Bering Sea coast, Southwest Alaska. And my grandparents are Cecilia Andrews and the late Billy Ulran Andrews. And also my grandparents on my St. Paul, Minnesota side are Joanne K. and the late Roger K. Sr. And today I reside and live and work on the ancestral Dena'ina lands, and we call it Anchorage. However, this is a land where Dena'ina Athabascan people have shared their stories, their wisdom, their songs, the passing on of traditional knowledge and wisdom to the next generation for thousands of years. And I'm grateful to be here. And before I kind of, walk us through some of the images and the experiences that I have had because of this wonderful opportunity, I want to begin by first sharing about a few experiences that I had in the way of sharing pieces of my Alaska Native arts and culture, and why this work is so important to me and why it meant so much on this particular journey. So a part of that began about 10 years ago. I was working with Alaska Native youth at a treatment program, at a residential treatment program that provided therapy and clinical resources and just residential treatment therapy for Alaska Native youth who experience a lot of difficult and challenging things in life. And I entered into that residential treatment program with the goal of teaching these group of 24 youth Alaska Native songs and dances and stories. And my goal was to connect with these youth one time per week and teach them songs and dances and stories and engage with them for a total of 12 weeks. And I remember on day one, I walked into the room and I found myself surrounded by 24 Alaska Native youth, 24 brown faces, 24 deep, deep stories. And one of the first questions that I asked was, introduce yourself by your name, your home community, and what you think of when you hear the word culture, because culture can mean so many different things, and it's personal and it's unique to all of us. And we went around the circle, and one at a time, each of these youth shared what culture meant to them. Some of the youth said, culture means songs and dances. Culture means helping our elders. Culture means berry picking on the land. And I remember when I got to one particular youth, his hair remained over his eyes, and with his arms folded, he said, I don't know about my culture, I don't care about my culture, and I don't want to learn anything about my culture. And so I paused with this youth, and I respected, what he had to share with me, and I said, okay, well, that's fine. And every week I came back into that space, and I taught these youth Alaska Native songs and dances, where we all got up and we learned these songs together. We shared the motions together. We danced them out, and we understood the stories behind all of those songs. And I watched as week by week, this one young teenager, he went from our arms folded and hair in front of his eyes to slowly and gradually bringing his hands apart and sharing a few motions. And then I noticed on week 12, right before our cultural connection time was going to close, I watched that young man dance on the day that he graduated from that treatment program. And I'll never forget the pride and the light in his eyes as he danced to his favorite song and said, this is the song that I want to share on this day that means so much to me. And I am not sure where this young man is in life, where he is, or how his life is going, but I do know that he carried a special piece of himself with him today. And it's values like that mean so much. And another experience that I had in 2022, I was facilitating a drum making activity at the Covenant House, Alaska. It's an organization here in Anchorage that provides shelter for shelterless youth, and also life skills and classes and opportunities for youth who are homeless. And we have a large homeless youth population here in Anchorage, and many of them are Alaska Native youth. So I found myself in the room of these youth who were very timid and shy, not speaking much. But we engaged with these youth, and we came together and we made drums together. And this is very similar to what we all made together that day. We brought all the materials for these youth to each make their own Yupik drum. And following that activity, and a lot goes into sitting down with people and making drums. You need elder knowledge in the room. You need connection in the room. You need the willingness to be able to be vulnerable and help each other out when we're struggling with a part of making that drum. And so following our drum making session, I gathered those youth into a circle and I said, let's share a chant together. And I want to invite you, as you feel safe, as you feel comfortable, to join that chant. And I watched one by one as each of these youth chose to enter in with the chant, with their voices joining and with their drums joining. And it was such a powerful moment that brought us all together. And following that, one particular young man, he came up to me and he said, have you heard of this one song from my village? And I said, no, I haven't heard that song before. Can you sing it for me? And this young man, who society would call and label as homeless, he proceeded to sing a song that comes from his traditional village. And he proceeded to sing that song for me. He told me his Athabascan name. He told me who his family was, who his home community was, and those things that meant very much to him. And that to me was so powerful for me, because here was a young man who was reclaiming a strong part of his identity and sharing that with me. And I wanted to share some of those experiences because those are some of the things that planted that original seed and that deep interest that I had in continuing to work with some of Alaska's most at-risk youth. And that is what walked me into this place that I want to share with you all, following my time being a recipient of Alaska Wilderness League's Adam Kolton Alaska Storytelling Grant. And so before I share some of those images, I've introduced myself, and I would love an opportunity to get to know people a little bit more in this room. So I'm going to ask you to engage in something with me. For a moment, I want each of you here to think about your favorite body of water. It could be a creek where you spent time as a child. It could be a river where you have many memories fishing. It could be an ocean where you listen to the tide gently come in and gently go out. It could be any body of water. And now in the chat, I want you each to list two things. Name that favorite body of water of yours, that specific place, and why you hold that place close to your heart. So take a moment, enter into the chat your favorite place of water, somewhere you hold close to your heart, and also share why. Just one sentence on why that place of water means so much to you. And I'm going to go through and share some of what I see. Okay. I see a comment that shares San Francisco Bay because it's where I'm originally from. Yes, origin. Origin is so much a part of how we connect with the land and the water around us. Pacific Ocean, because it's a place of healing. Sandra shares a place of healing. Exactly. Water can be so healing to us. Rhett shares Waldo Lake, Oregon, because it feels like it connects directly to my soul. So there's a deep connection that your soul feels to that particular place of water. Marilena shares that the body of water is in Romania. It is the place my grandma were from and that I still love. Yes, ancestral ties to the water are so deep and so meaningful. Family time spent on these waters. Special memories. Lake Superior, I can very much identify with Lake Superior. I have many memories going there with my grandparents and taking winter trips to see the icy waves crashing against and Roger K. Hi, Dad. Dad says Porcupine River because we had adventures on it. Yes, Dad and I had many adventures on the Porcupine River, where it flows from Alaska to Canada, way up north. Pacific Ocean, Lake Michigan. And so I just want to invite everyone to see what everyone shared about our connections to the water. And now I'd like to pull up a, if I could have sharing capability, I'd love to pull up my PowerPoint so I could begin to share some of what I've experienced in this past year. And I'm seeing more comments come in about these places of water that are so special and meaningful for the people here. May I have the ability to share the PowerPoint?
Should be
Share
there. I
screen?
apologize. Let
Okay.
me adjust that. Try one more time.
Okay, share screen. All right, I see that. Here we are. Okay, can everyone see this? All right. As I begin sharing, and I want to make sure I stick to time here and wrap up by 2:45. But as I share some of my experiences that I had with youth and cultural connection, I'd first like to begin by expressing my gratitude to the late Adam Kolton and his family and the Alaska Wilderness League for making this experience possible. The League's Adam Kolton Alaska Storytelling Grant opened the door for some valuable connections this past year, including the opportunity to partner with multiple talented Alaska Native artists, moments to develop and create and share music together, and most impactfully, the opportunity to make positive connections with Alaska's youth, with Alaska Native values as the focus and the foundation. This grant really opened the door for stories to be told, for youth voices to come alive, and it allowed the exploration of Alaska Native values in a way that is strength-based and healing. And so I wanted to engage with you all again in a brief activity centered around some of, not all, of Alaska Natives' traditional values. So here you see a list of values before you on these cards. And what you'll notice is that our values as Indigenous people are deeply rooted in connections to the land and deeply rooted in relationships with family and people and community. So I want to give you all an opportunity to select one value, choose a value that you hold most sacred, a value that speaks to you personally, and in the chat, list that value and list the value and share one way that you can model that value for the next generation. Share one way that you can pass on that specific value to the next generation. And as I see comments coming in, I'll go ahead and share some of those. Live mindfully, Naomi shares. Now I want to encourage everyone to share one way you can model that for the next generation, or one way you can pass that on to the coming generation. Walks in the forest, quiet reflection. Marilena shares, know who you are. Vida, take care of others, volunteer. Be a good steward. Yes, that's one of the ways that we can pass on these values. Live mindfully, and we can do so by protecting our land and animals. Take care of others, help in the community. Jane shares, honor elders and family. Taking turns caring for a parent or an elder. Live with the earth in reciprocity. Yes, live mindfully. Calmness, connections, sharing genealogy. I'm seeing a common theme of taking care of others and being a good steward of the earth. Exactly. Chris shares humility. And one way to pass that on is to share gratitude of others. Visiting elders being a way of honoring our elders. Yes. I want to invite everyone to continue to share their specific value. I just want to thank everyone for sharing their value. And part of what each of you are doing in sharing your connection to that value is you're speaking life into the next generation. One of the things that my grandmother, Cecilia Andrews, always said was to be very mindful of the words that we speak, and the words that we choose to use, because in doing so, we bring great impact to the people around us. And when we choose to use positive words and choose to use words that embody our values, our youth, our children will become the words that we speak. So I wanted to talk about the organization that I chose to share and host these cultural workshops at. I chose North Star Behavioral Health. It's basically Alaska's state hospital. It's Alaska's state residential treatment program for children and adolescents who struggle with psychiatric issues. And there were several reasons that I chose this particular facility. And because although such programming is necessary for people who struggle in our state, there's very little in the way of cultural and place-based programming available for youth. It's a gap that many of our organizations have, and something that I believe that we are getting better at addressing. And so I wanted to help fill that gap by providing these workshops that are centered around Alaska Native values. And also, I had a really impactful time in 2014 when I came here and I shared Alaska Native songs and dances with some of the little people who live here, and just seeing the little eyes light up and Alaska Native children raise their hands in excitement and say, we go to fish camp too in my village. You know, we have yurak, we have dance in my village too. And to see these youth light up in pride of who they are was one of the reasons I wanted to return and continue to hold these workshops. I also have a personal connection to this place. I have a young person who is very close to me and near and dear to my heart, who spent time here during a time of deep struggle when we were in the height of the pandemic, and many of us had limited social connections, and many of us had felt the impact of that. This very little person who's near and dear to my heart had spent time here. So I felt that personal connection in my heart. And that's also one of the reasons I chose to connect with youth at this particular place. A little bit about the workshops. So I held so far a total of 4 workshops with 60 participants ranging in the ages of 10 to 17 years old. And these were opportunities to connect with youth and share activities that were centered and grounded in Alaska Native traditional activities. And I've listed here 1 through 7, some of the examples of some of the activities that we facilitated with the Alaska Native youth. One of our check-in activities, first of all, we'd have all the youth join in this big circle. There's so much connection that happens in circles, and circles are very important across Indigenous cultures. And so we would have the youth come sit down, invite them, get to know them. What is your favorite winter memory? And it was wonderful, some of the things that we heard youth say. Some of them recalled memories of snowball fights with the siblings they missed very, very much. Some of them recalled special winter trips that they had taken with their parents who they hadn't seen in such a long time. And so it was that time to have that connection. Also, we had activities around those Alaska Native values. We had breakout circles where youth were invited to share their voice and to talk about why that value means something to them. Also, we had an activity where we brought in Alaska Native foods such as dry fish, and we brought dry reindeer and some other subsistence foods, and we sat down with the youth and we shared this food with them. And along with that, We taught the youth why that value of sharing our catch and sharing what we gathered from the land is so important. And we asked the youth, so if you had caught your first fish, or you had picked your first Ziploc of blueberries, who is that person that you're thinking of that you would like to share with? And we took turns one by one as each youth took the opportunity to talk about who they would share their berries with, who they would share their first seal with, who they would share their first fish with. And it really allowed that youth to make that personal connection with that value of sharing. Also, we engaged in traditional storytelling. I shared some of the ancient stories that come from our Yupik and Chupik people, one of them being a story about the boy who lived with the seals and got to experience life living with the seals. We learned Alaska Native dances together. I taught the youth what our Alaska Native dances mean, what the motions mean, how each song tells a story about a person being on the land and on the water. We also invited youth to gather in a circle and engage in that Yupik chant activity. And this is an activity where I gathered the youth together in a circle with the drum and invited the youth to then bring their voice into that chant. And it's wonderful, the openness of the youth that you see in there, just when you start to feel, it can be a daunting feeling when you're going into an institution and you know that you will be working with Alaska's most at-risk, troubled, as some people would say, youth who struggle with so many things, from broad mental illness, illness experiences and broad trauma, many things that most of us probably can't imagine. And to be able to sit in a circle and hear the voices of these youth vulnerably sharing, talking about values, sharing memories of being with family out in the winter, engaging in a song. It was wonderful to be able to see youth engaging in that way. And oftentimes we would close our cultural connection opportunities by asking, what is one thing that you're taking with you today? And again, youth had a voice and an opportunity to talk about those things. So the words and the wisdom of the youth at the North Star Behavioral Health never cease to amaze me. Remember that Alaska Native Values activity that all of us engaged in a little while ago, where you got to pick the one value that you hold most sacred to you? This was very similar to some of the values activities that we held with the youth at North Star, and these were some of their responses. And this is just a small snippet of responses. And one thing that I noticed is that each youth had the opportunity to participate in these activities. And if they chose not to, they didn't have to. But every single one of them chose to remain in that circle, chose to share their story, chose to share their value, and chose to reflect on those things and participate. And one common thing that I noticed, that following these cultural connection opportunities, some of the youth would approach me and say, I'm Cherokee from North Carolina. My family's from a little town in North Carolina, and my culture is so similar to your culture. And we would sit there and we'd talk about that similarity. I also had a young participant who had grown up with family in Samoa, and she came up to me and she said, my Samoan culture is so similar to your culture. We have the same stories that you talked about today. So it was just a really awesome time for me and these youth to share that connection and that common human place of our stories and our values. And I remember one particular time, one teenager I noticed really became alive during that story about the boy who lived with the seals. And he really became alive when I taught them the song and the dance motions that is based on that seal story. And following our time together, he approached me and he shared that he was from Savunga, an island in the middle of the Bering Sea. And he shared that seal hunting was a favorite activity of his and very much a part of who he is as a young teen male growing into adulthood. So truly, these were opportunities that I believe in one way or another spoke life into each of those youth. And I hope each of them, and I know each of them has a little bit of that light, that pride, that identity to carry with them for a very long time. So a little bit about the trip. The latest part of this Cultural Connections grant project that was made possible through this grant was my latest trip to one of my home communities about 2 weeks ago, when myself and 2 other Alaska Native artists traveled out to the village of Lower Kalskag on the Kuskokwim River. And one of the reasons I chose this community was the community is at a vulnerable place of losing the value of Alaska Native song and dance because the cultural educator has just retired this year. And I learned that that particular class had stopped. And so we gathered together, we went over to my home community and we taught songs and dances to the youth while we were there. These are a few photos. Of course, the only airplanes that fly out to rural Alaska are something like little Cessna airplanes. We had a big plane that day, which is a caravan. It can hold 9 people. And we traveled there that day. This is the community of Lower Kalskag here. And another reason that I chose this community was my connection to this water here. This is the Kuskokwim River, where some of my favorite childhood memories took place, working together as a family to drift net for fish and bring enough salmon fish to the smokehouse so that our family could eat fish over the winter. And typically it's the men that go out by boat and throw the drift net into the river. And then as soon as you see those buoys bounce in a magical way and splash in a beautiful way, you know you have fish. And then you begin to pull that net back into your little skiff and then bring the fish home. So I have a deep connection to this place as well. So here you'll see a few images of us in the middle of the drum making activity. We had a total of 20 participants ranging from 6th grade to adults who engaged in the drum making. Everybody made their own drum during this experience. Here we are. We must have taught about 5 songs to the community. Here's what it looked like. We practiced all these songs in the gym together. We told the story behind the song. We shared the song, practiced it several times over. And one of the things that we did as artists is we made sure that we were recording each song so that the community would be gifted each of these songs so that those stories and those songs and those dances would continue. And we told the community, take these songs, take these dances, continue to learn them, teach them, share them in any way that you would like. Here we are. We were in many circles together talking about these things and engaging in chant activities and dance activities. we as Native people, we also spend a lot of time on the floor. You'll notice in many of our Indigenous, our Alaska Native communities, we will do things like eat on the floor. We will learn on the floor. We will teach on the floor, make drums on the floor, because we believe in that it does two things. It honors the land that we're on and the land that we're gifted to so that we can be close to it. And it also honors and remembers the ancestors who have passed on before us. Here is part of the young group that made the drums with us. And one of our final closing activities was we held a yurak, or a dance for the community, and we went to the city hall. And this is the city hall where the village gathers for various events such as fiddle dance, such as bingo, such as traditional council meetings and weddings, and all of the important things happen in this little one-room building right here. And we got to share our songs and dances with the elders and with the community. And finally, I want to share a song, and this is a special song, and it's based on that story that I've told before about how my auntie, one of my childhood memories, this is a photo here that pictures my late auntie Annie on the right-hand side and my late adoptive mom, Balasa, on the left-hand side. And they are drift netting for salmon on the Kuskokwim River. And one of the things that my auntie Annie always did, as we put the boat into the water during springtime when the river was finally open, she would lean over the bow of the boat and she would take the river water and she would splash it on her face. And when we would ask her, and she'd always tell us, do the same thing, splash the water on your face. And we would ask her why. And she would say, so the river will know us. And this song was created by the two other artists who accompanied me on this latest trip to the village. It was created by Asi Gayayok and Baista Nanaluk, two Yupik song composers. And the night that we got into the village, they were in the high school, and suddenly a song came to them. And that's the song that I want to share with you. And the emotions and the meaning of this song are based on that story of so the river will know us. And this song says, this river, the Kuskokwim, the seasons are changing into spring. I place the river water on my face so that the river will know me as I travel. And with that, I want to attempt to play it here. Oops. Can everyone hear that?
Yep.
Okay, and that concludes.
There's one simple vision hack anyone can use to improve vision.
Sorry.
So you can say
Just
goodbye
a
to your
moment.
optometrist for good. Did you know that vision
And that concludes my sharing for today. And once again, I want to thank Adam Kolton's family and Alaska Wilderness League for making this project possible. Koyana Chuknuk.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry I was late.
Thanks, folks. Please, as a reminder, just please try and stay on mute. And if there are any other questions, please do share them in the chat. Polly, did you want us to share that final video as well? We do have a little bit of time.
Oh, that was the video that that I just shared.
Apologies. Yeah.
Mhm.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that. I've had the good fortune of exchanging a few emails back and forth over the year or so, and it's been very powerful to see some of this stuff in action, I will say. It's very thrilling. Just as a reminder to folks, this is a program that continues at Alaska Wilderness League, the Adam Kolton Alaska Storytelling Grant. We're actually very thrilled to feature the second recipient of this grant next month, which in another event. And again, this is another effort that's made possible by the Adam Kolton Memorial Fund. We'll be sharing a link in the chat momentarily. Since we still have a few minutes, if folks have questions, please do enter them in the chat. One popped into my head as we were going through that presentation, which is I'm going to flip the exercise of what you did with all the audience members and asking for the values and passing those along. I was curious, of the value cards that you shared, was there one in particular that resonated with you or perhaps inspired you to start doing some of this work?
One of the ones that speaks to me, all of them do in some way, of course. And the one that resonates with me is know who you are. You know, there have been times where I have been that youth who struggled, you know, and having had gone through some early childhood traumas myself, you know, it has been a long road of a journey of healing and recovery, and something that was such a big part of that were my connections on the land and on the water, the fishing, the hunting, the gathering, the stories being told around campfire, the songs and dances that were taught, and have been very much and growing as a person who is still becoming, and who is still becoming that person, and who is still getting to know who I am. I think that identity piece is so, so important to anyone's healing journey. Thank you for that question.
It does look like we had one person also ask. I think you'd mentioned that picture of you're on the boat when you shared that song. What can you remind us where that was taken and maybe orient it for folks unaware?
Yes, so that photo of my adoptive mom, Balassa Andrews, and her late sister, Auntie Annie Wise, that was taken on a bend of the Kuskokwim River, and that's the same bend of the Kuskokwim River where our family still engages in subsistence fishing each summer today. And I think the photo might have been taken in the 1980s. And I had the deep gift of being able to spend many meaningful moments and parts of my upbringing with women who were raised by my grandfather to do men's work, because he had 12 children, and 8 of the 12 children were girls. They were women. So as they grew and were reared into adulthood, he taught them how to do what was traditionally men's work, which is the fishing, the hunting, gathering wood, and that sort of thing. So Kuskokwim, 1980s.
I think I had one more that came to my mind, which is just sort of looking ahead a little bit. We're getting into some warmer weather. I'm sure you'll be spending some time with family. Is there something over the next few months, either related to this work or the change of season, that you're particularly excited about? For some of us who can't get to Alaska during that change of season.
Well, my new favorite activity is seal hunting. I cut my first seal a year ago in May in the bay near Anchorage, an hour or two away, and then I really look forward to possibly going for another seal. That was my first catch of a seal. So of course, according to our culture and traditions, we share the whole entirety of the catch. And this time I look forward to maybe not sharing some of it so I could try it. But yes, I do look forward to seal hunting. Also, my dad is taking the kids and I up to the Boundary Waters in northern Minnesota, and I have never been there before. I think Dad has a lot of memories of being a young Minnesota boy and a teenager and 20-something, and has had those memories, but I've heard wonderful things about the Boundary Waters and that it shares a lot in common with Alaska. So I look forward to that experience as well.
Great. That's great. We have a colleague. I have a colleague of mine who works in Minnesota and has fought on her personal time to help protect the Boundary Waters. So there is a lot of overlap there for sure. Well, I don't see a ton much else. I think people are a little speechless, to be frank. So I appreciate, Polly, all that you've shared with us this evening and or afternoon from where you sit. And yeah, for folks on the Zoom or not, we will have the recording up soon to be able to share that out. Otherwise, thank you all, and thanks once again, Polly, for joining us.